Your Excellency, former President Thabo Mbeki, patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, current and former heads of states and representatives, Your Excellencies, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, colleagues from academia, think tanks, civil society, distinguished guests. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to address you virtually at this timely inaugural Thabo Mbeki Foundation African Peace and Security Dialogue. The United Nations family in its entirety, especially the family in South Africa, is proud to accompany and engage with this vital gathering at a time when Africa stands at the crossroads in its quest for lasting peace, security, and sustainable development. The imperative to silence the guns through socioeconomic transformation and for sustainable development is something that African leaders, continental institutions, and African stakeholders must drive with or without external support. For decades, and for far too long, Africa has grappled with a myriad of complex challenges, from poverty and inequality to governance deficits, human rights violations, youth disillusionment, non-beneficial exploitation of our natural resources, and the devastating and persisting impacts of climate change. These factors often exacerbate conflicts and insecurity across the continent, to the extent that Africa has now become the world epicenter of global terrorism, with fatalities related to violent extremist groups rising by 20% in 2023, claiming, sadly, more than 23,000 lives. However, amidst these challenges, opportunities for transformative change have also emerged. We have seen the resilience of African communities even in the face of adversity. The examples of recent civilian-led protests in Senegal, Kenya, and Nigeria, demanding accountability from their governments, remind us of the power of the people, particularly young people, in shaping democratic and accountable governance. These movements demonstrate how our disillusioned citizens, especially the young, can hold their leaders accountable and demand better governance without resorting to violence. Today's dialogue, therefore, serves as a critical platform for us to reflect on these challenges, but more importantly, to explore African-led solutions that can steer us towards a more peaceful, secure, and sustainable future. As the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has affirmed on countless occasions, the United Nations is steadfast in its commitment to supporting African solutions, yes, to African problems. In May this year, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted a presidential statement aimed at strengthening the role of African countries in addressing global security and development challenges. The Secretary General opened this important debate, saying that Africa is home to many examples of unity and solidarity in a fractured world, citing our continent's focus on supporting refugees, fleeing across borders, and achieving sustainable development, such as making progress towards reducing poverty and hunger, as well as embracing the energy transition. However, he pointed out, all these efforts require peace in Africa and beyond. Excellencies and friends, this dialogue aligns with our shared vision for a world that is peaceful and an Africa at peace, as articulated in the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 16, which aims to promote peaceful and inclusive societies, one in which Africans are not only benefiting from, but are also included in governance. But then, Africans also should not be in contexts where they are caught up in conflicts or living with the relentless danger of violent extremism in their communities. We must therefore leverage the power of intellectual leadership, servant leadership, anticipatory action based on foresight, and collaborative interventions alongside innovation. All participants in this dialogue hold the key to bridging the gap between theory and practice. As earlier affirmed, the United Nations stands ready to support these efforts as we recognize that sustainable solutions must be informed by local realities and shaped by local voices with human rights at the core. We are of the view that full compliance with human rights is the best antidote to the inequalities, unaddressed grievances, and exclusion, which are often at the root of instability and conflict. Let us remember, friends, excellencies, that our shared goal is not merely to respond to crisis, but to build a foundation for lasting peace and development. Sustainable peace is inextricably linked to sustainable development. The recent Summit of the Future in New York pointed to the need for turbocharging the Sustainable Development Goals and, as well, a new agenda for peace, which must be supportive of the African Union's flagship Silencing the Guns initiative and, of course, the Agenda 2063. African participation and leadership must be embedded across the global peace and security architecture, including a reformed UN Security Council with permanent veto-wielding seats for the African continent. Africa needs its voice to be heard, and this can only happen if African countries participate meaningfully in global governance structures as equals, and also that the imbalances of the past are rectified. This dialogue offers a unique opportunity to generate practical solutions, foster collaboration, and establish a framework for ongoing dialogue on peace and security, and yes, on development as well. Achieving peace and security demands social dialogue and collaboration across all sectors, from government, civil society, the private sector, regional economic communities, African Union, and international partners, including multilateral institutions like the United Nations. The African Peace and Security Architecture and the African Governance Architecture are vital tools that we must leverage to address the root causes of conflict. At the same time, we must also tap into the potential of initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, which can promote economic development as a foundation for peace and lasting stability, and also the African Facility to support inclusive transitions, a joint African Union Commission and UN Development Program, programmatic instrument specifically dedicated to supporting credible, inclusive, and legitimate political transitions in Africa, ensuring a return to constitutional order, democracy, and stability. Let us seize this moment to reaffirm our commitment to a peaceful and secure Africa, where Africans are living in harmony with each other and the planet. In conclusion, as we focus on West Africa and the Horn of Africa during this important dialogue, we must confront stark realities that these regions face: civil wars, the expansion of the geographic footprint of terrorist groups and transnational criminal activities, forced displacement, and humanitarian crisis in the midst of a worsening socioeconomic and financial context. This therefore calls for urgent, coordinated responses. We must learn from past interventions, share best practices, and work together to prevent future conflicts and mitigate additional suffering. Let us therefore deepen our collaboration, working together to turn challenges into opportunities and build a continent where guns are silenced, youthful voices are vibrant, and everyone is contributing towards peace and prosperity, benefiting all. Thank you, and I wish you every success in the unfolding deliberations and look forward to accompanying you, the patron, colleagues at the foundation, and other excellencies and stakeholders in this venture. I thank you again.